The thing about Candace is she's had such dramatic changes of what her opinions are, both left to right and pro-Israel, anti-Israel, and so on. But the other thing is that there is a theme throughout her career that she's been very much involved with ultra-Zionist people who have boosted her career. And then she marries into this Michael Farmer family and then starts going against Israel. And, she's obviously close to Tucker Carlson. And together, they are basically the two most algorithmically prominent, quote, influencers in what's become known as the alternative media. And
Hmm.
I do think, and of course, Ian Carroll is close to Candace Owens and has fronted up her show when she's been away. So something doesn't absolutely feel right, to say the least. And then you have Carlson won't talk to me. You have Rogan won't talk to me. Because if I talked to Rogan, then I'd bring Musk up, who's his mate. If I talk to Carlson, I'd start questioning why he's so controlled by his religious belief when there's so much else beyond that to be explored. So it's like, hold the line,
Yeah.
hold the line, hold the line. This is the conspiracy. This is it. This is it. This is all there is. And that's why I keep saying to people, it's okay saying, Israel controls Trump, but you have to ask the next question: who controls Israel? And then
Mm.
you ask the next question: who controls that which controls Israel? That's
Yes.
what you have to keep doing until you get to the absolute origin of it. It's not what people think it is.
That's
It's not
true.
even
And
the Rothschilds. They're gophers, powerful as they are gophers at their level. The cover
yes.
story of many of these people is it's not Trump. No, no, Trump's not doing it. He's just been badly advised. Oh, yeah. Well, you mean he's an idiot then? And so he says, Carlson, that there are people advising him who have a really bad track record of calling things. And you go, well, get a mirror, mate. This is the guy whose whole record is of bad calling things in terms of Carlson. He was a supporter of, at the time, of the invasion of Iraq, which was the most obvious scam to anyone with half a brain cell on active duty.
Right.
And then he supports Trump into office and then goes, oh no, well, what's happening? And he's also said in the last few days that it's good that J.D. Vance, who employs his son, by the way, Carlson's son, that J.D. Vance is going to hold negotiations with Iran because Vance is an honest and credible man.
Hmm.
And you're like, what are you talking about? However, look, Carlson, Owens, Carroll, all these people, they they are the opposition to what the cult wants. They control the Overton window as a result.
While you were talking about Elon, your phrase came to mind. You can only see what's coming if you know what's planned to come. And in the book, you talk about the technate. And I think Elon really does get talked about too much. He gets too much mental real estate out there. But this is so important. This came from your book. To quote the book, Musk's grandfather, Joshua Heidelman, and his Technocracy Inc. sought to overthrow elected Democratic government in the US and Canada and replace it with appointed technocrats and bureaucrats. Sounds familiar. A Technocracy Inc. publication in 1938 stated the technate will encompass the entire American continent from Panama to the North Pole because the natural resources and the natural boundary of this area make it an independent, self-sustaining geographical unit. The proposed technate spanning from Venezuela in the north of South America up through Panama, Central America, and Mexico to include Canada and Greenland. And then you say, we see why Trump, Musk, and their fellow billionaires seek to take over Panama, Greenland, and absorb Canada as the 51st state. Greenland is currently owned by Denmark, and Trump picked as his ambassador to Denmark another member of the Peter Thiel Circle, Ken Howery, who established with Thiel the Venture Capital Founders Fund. However, a friend of Musk, was ambassador to next door Sweden in Trump's first term. They always play the long game coordinated by the astral archons. I will pull up the map they envisioned 90 years ago, but talk to us about this a little bit more. It seems so lofty, and a lot of it is kind of just talk, but this talk that people think is random and just off the top of Trump's head, it's not random. It goes back to Elon's grandfather, who I believe was arrested for trying to do this. It was seen as subversive to the established order. And now, years later, his grandson is basically like, no, we need this. So I'll pull up the map while you talk about it here a little bit.
Well, Joshua Haldeman, who operated out of Canada and supported Adolf Hitler and was arrested at one point in Canada. He, after the war in the early 50s, up sticks and moved to South Africa. And the reason he moved there, as I explain in the book, was because of apartheid. He supported apartheid, so did his wife. And there, Mae Musk was born, the daughter that gave birth to Elon Musk. And the interesting, real topical update, Greg, in all this, is the speech that Pete Hegseth, the so-called Secretary of War now, made, in which he talked about the greater North America. And he described a land acquisition and absorption, basically, by the United States that mirrored the map of the technate by Joshua Haldeman and the other crowd in the Technocracy Inc. operation in the 1930s. So the idea is, I've been writing about this since the 1990s, is ultimately to have a world government which would not be elected, it would be selected bureaucrats, technocrats, experts. And by the way, for people who haven't come across it, that's what technocracy means. Technocracy is appointed governments, not elected governments. And what they've been doing, because they play the long game, and it's not coming from the characters that we see. It's coming from here. It's coming from here deep in the shadows, ultimately another dimension. And therefore, they're playing the long game. They're calculating this over a long period of what we call time. And thus, these politicians, they're here today and they'll push it on a little bit in their little period, and then others will replace them and they'll push it on a little bit, but it's all orchestrated from here. So you have this plan for a world government of technocrats, appointees, not elected people. And under the world government would be a series of superstates around the world, of which this greater North America technate would be one of them. That's the whole way that it's all been planned. And then they want to break countries up into regions that are powerless against the central dictatorship of the world government and the technate superstates. And under that edifice of control would be the population, would be the people. And what we are having potentially now is that the withdrawal of energy supplies and quite potentially food supplies around the world is offering the impetus for one of the great parts of this agenda, which is preventing the people moving. You know, people talk about 15-minute cities, and I've written about these at some length over the years, where they want to break up cities into little enclaves, little communities, where everything you need, so they say, people like the World Economic Forum, will be within 15 minutes walk or 15 minutes cycle ride from your home. And that you will have number plate cameras to stop you, even if you have a car by then, from leaving that area without permission. And so let's look at the potential outcome of this tremendous reduction in global fuel supplies alone. Never mind everything else that oil is used for and made for, and things are made from it. You're not going to be able to drive your bloody car if you don't have fuel to make it work. And I mean, people say, oh, yeah, but what about electric cars? Oh, yeah. Where do you think the electricity comes from? Overwhelmingly still comes from these fuels ultimately. So you have the potential, like I said earlier, to go from we are telling you you have to lock down to you've got no choice because you
Mm.
can't go anywhere because there's not the fuel. And they're already talking in places, they're talking in Britain and wider afield of limiting the access to fuel to try and save supplies, which will mean that we're going back to things like working from home, to not being able to travel, not being able to move. I mean, they don't want people flying everywhere.
Yeah, look at what's going on with air travel. 4-hour wait to get through TSA. I mean, you hear that on the news and nobody's booking flights anywhere. You just don't want to deal with it unless you really must for some reason. But yeah, crashed planes and then also these huge waits. It is really crazy.
This is the thing, Greg. If you look, even before this situation with fuel supplies massively advancing it, you look at the war on travel and the war on the private car. You have, as you say, what's happening in the airports, which is a real disincentive to go anywhere. And then you have the war on driving, on motorists. In this country, the Labour government, which is basically the equivalent of your Democrats, and the Labour councils that run the urban areas, they have been introducing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in the cities.
Hmm.
I went to London. There's a mayor there called Sadiq Khan, who's doing everything the cult wants. And it's like dystopia, mate. You're driving along and there's cameras everywhere picking up your speed, and people are being done for like 24 miles an hour. It's like a dystopia. It's like a sci-fi movie where everyone's going really slow, even though there's no cars in front of them. They're going slow because if they go any faster, they'll get fined and lose their license. But if they're a driver for a living, they'll lose their job.
Right. Big Brother is watching. And another thing I heard about this is they're actually looking to, in the next couple of years of cars, add AI to the cars where they can algorithmically determine if you're a sober driver or a distracted driver. So if the computer inside the car says, I think he's had one drink too many, or I think they're looking at their phone too much, the car will just stop for you, and all in the name of safety, of course. But this is crazy. It's like a breathalyzer in everyone's car. Not that I want drunk people driving around, but this is how they justify more control in your lives. So I wanted to cut in here because we are at the second hour transition, and we talked a lot about the people involved. And I do want to get beyond the gopher level in this second hour and make it a bit weirder, but let me slide this into the first. So we talked about at the beginning how your new book, The Roadmap, is an updated version of The Big Secret. And when it comes to like little details that I never hear anywhere else that are new, this is something I wanted to make sure we threw in. So I love your work that you've done on the cult worship of Saturn and the Saturn moon matrix. And I assume some of what you've added is this overlap with the electric universe researchers and the work that's been done on plasma over the last 30 years. I think I learned about the hexagon storm at Saturn's North Pole from you years ago, as well as the I formation at the South Pole, but this part has to be new. You write, graphene has been theorized since 1947, became a reality in 2004, and today it's used in semiconductors, electronics, and electric batteries, among much else, of course, the vax and all that stuff. Its atoms are arranged as a hexagon honeycomb. If the hexagon represents the frequency of Saturn, does this mean that graphene in the body connects people with this frequency? This would make sense with my contention that Saturn is broadcasting low frequencies to the Earth, amplified by technology within the moon. Graphene and its derivative graphene oxide appears black because it absorbs all visible light wavelengths and is phenomenally strong, the strongest metal ever measured on a microscopic scale. Black is the color associated with Saturn. Most significantly, it is a tremendous conductor of electricity and even a superconductor. Man, so yeah, we can pick apart the new alternative media and Elon Musk and all that stuff. Some people are talking about that. No one is talking about this. To me, that is a huge hit with the Saturn symbolism matrix that seems to touch almost everything. Graphene, the hexagon shape, the color. I feel like that's a really strong hit.
Well, the thing is that people don't realize how much Saturn symbolism is all around them. I mean, the Judaistic god of Saturn is called El and is symbolized as a cube. And another symbol of Saturn is the black cube.
Right.
And you have the classic symbol of Saturn, which is the Star of David. That's an ancient symbol of Saturn. And the name Rothschild actually comes from that symbol. The Rothschilds, in the days of Mayer Amschel Rothschild, who started the Rothschild banking financial dynasty in Germany, in Frankfurt, they lived in a house in Frankfurt that had a red Star of David on the house. And in their name was Bauer. They were a Middle Ages family called Bauer. They were an occult family, actually. And they then changed their name to Rothschild,
Right.
which in German is Red Shield, which is the Star of David. So it, in their terms, so it was a symbol of Saturn and spawned the very name Rothschild. The Rothschilds then enormously funded the movement of people out of Germany after the Second World War and indeed before into Palestine. And now we have the flag of Israel is the Star of David. And the Star of David is not a uniquely Jewish symbol. You can find it everywhere. I mean, I've been to Japan a few times to speak, and all around the Japanese temples, you see things like swastikas and stuff. In Asia, you see the Star of David symbol. And so it's not unique to Jewish people. It's a symbol of Saturn. And if you look at all these different religions and secret societies, Saturn symbolism comes up again and again. One of the things that I point out in the roadmap, and I pointed out in previous books, is how the sigil of Saturn, as it's called, is the whole basis of the Freemasonic compass symbol. They are the same. And if you look at the logo for Balmoral in Scotland, which is one of the homes, the many homes of the British royal family, it's the sigil of Saturn. It's not a little bit like it. It is it, right? So everywhere you kind of look, you see these symbols of Saturn. And as I've passed through the years, the decades, I've not sat in a darkened room and come to these conclusions. It's been done from hard research as well. And people who have, they don't go into the esoteric at all, but they have concluded that the rings of Saturn are not natural, that they have been created.
Yes, yes. That's another big thing I want to ask you about, because that guy in particular I almost interviewed, but he was already into his 90s. Then he passed in 2018. But just to add to the thing you said about the Rothschilds and the Red Shield, like this is conspiracy 101. I've heard this many times that they were the Bowers, then they became the Rothschilds, Red Shield. Well, just to tie this back to Candace. So, Candace Owens, we know she married this guy, George Farmer, in a very strange circumstance. She met him a time, like maybe one time, and then 17 days later, he proposed over FaceTime and she said yes. Very strange arrangement. I don't know what that's about, but the Farmer family, as you talk about in the book, goes way deep with the Rothschilds. And this family has been a longtime metals and commodity trading family, including gold, silver, oil, gas, and copper. His father was known as Mr. Copper in the City of London financial district, as you say. So then you have all these details about, this company gets bought up by this company, and then one was sold to the notorious Enron for $448 million, and it goes on and on. We know it's all a shell game with these people and their companies, but I just found this super interesting. So later, this guy, Berthold Rothschild, was sent to New York to establish the American Metal Company and the Société Le Nickel of France, which was founded by the Rothschilds. And Candace is always talking about French influence. Well, here it is. And then Farmer co-founded a metals and trading investment firm in 2005 called the Red Kite Group. And obviously, you track the association with the Rothschilds. Anyone trading commodities and metals at this level knows them. But
Yeah.
if you're trying to rebrand like the Red Shield, I mean, a kite shape looks very much like a shield. So I just found this funny. And given the strange arrangement with Candace, I wonder if she'll ever start criticizing the Rothschilds.
Well, the thing is that you have Michael Farmer, who's now Candace Owens' father-in-law, who you rightly say was called Mr. Copper in the City of London. He's worth an absolute fortune. But he's also one of the leading players in an organization that goes back many decades and has the monarch, currently King Charles, as its patron. And it's an organization specifically designed and designated to fuse Christianity with Judaism,
There
or
you go.
Zionism.
Yeah.
And it is a strange one that she marries into this family with this vehement Zionist father-in-law. She marries his son and then starts having a go at Israel. Now, in 2018, she traveled to Jerusalem with Charlie Kirk to attend the ceremony marking the movement of the US Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem on the say-so of Trump, on the say-so of those that control Trump. And she posted on the internet a picture with her and Charlie Kirk saying that it was noted that there were no elected Democrats at the ceremony. And basically, America and the world won't forget that, not supporting Israel. So she was a vehement pro-Israeli activist, as she was a vehement kind of progressive activist before she suddenly turned to Trump and became, quote, a conservative overnight. Then she marries into this Zionist family of Michael Farmer and starts having to go at Israel. I mean, there's a lot of things that are questions that should be asked but aren't being asked by enough people.
Right. And that's what tells me that the script changed. That's what tells me that she was all in on Zionism and then she married into a Zionist elite family. And that signals to me, that signals to the people in the know, oh, okay, she's integrated now. And then she goes on the offensive against Israel, which to those in the know is like, okay, that's allowed because clearly she's more connected than she ever has been through this marriage. And when people tell me that Israel has to be made out to be the bad guy so it can be wiped out so that they can fulfill the prophecy, This is it. This is the leading influencer changing the story, or at least going in this new direction. And where will that direction be in a year or 2 years from now? Everybody in the world will probably hate Israel. It'll probably get wiped out and their plan will be fulfilled or whatever's going on. But it seems like that's a signal that the script changed. She's allowed to change her messaging.
The thing about Candace is she's had such dramatic changes of what her opinions are, both left to right and pro-Israel, anti-Israel, and so on. But the other thing is that there is a theme throughout her career that she's been very much involved with ultra-Zionist people who have boosted her career. And then she marries into this Michael Farmer family and then starts going against Israel. And, she's obviously close to Tucker Carlson. And together, they are basically the two most algorithmically prominent, quote, influencers in what's become known as the alternative media. And I do think, and of course, Ian Carroll is close to Candace Owens and has fronted up her show when she's been away. So something doesn't absolutely feel right, to say the least. And then you have Carlson won't talk to me. You have Rogan won't talk to me. Because if I talked to Rogan, then I'd bring Musk up, who's his mate. If I talk to Carlson, I'd start questioning why he's so controlled by his religious belief when there's so much else beyond that to be explored. So it's like, hold the line.
Yeah.
Hold the line, hold the line. This is the conspiracy. This is it. This is it. This is all there is. And that's why I keep saying to people, it's okay saying, Israel controls Trump, but you have to ask the next question. Who controls Israel? And then you ask the next question, who controls that which controls Israel?
Yes.
That's what you have to keep doing until you get to the absolute origin of it. It's not what people think it is.
That's true.
It's not even the Rothschilds. They're gophers, powerful as they are gophers at their level.
Yes, right on. This is really great. You are truly one of the best to ever do it. I'm honored to have these interviews with you. I hope people out there can get beyond what's given to them by the algorithm and stay connected to what and who they find valuable. Tell them where to get more David Icke in their lives if they feel so inclined.
Well, if they go to davidicke.com, that's my website, where there's news in context every day. And there's also iconic.com, which is a video platform, where there's documentaries galore, enormous library of documentaries now about all the subjects and many more we haven't talked about, the nature of reality, all of it. And of course, news shows virtually every day looking at events in the world as well.
Like the biggest conspiracy of all, it's religion. Religion, division. And these so-called truthers and critical thinkers and persons who's fighting for the truth and you can see that religion is the biggest conspiracy to keep us divided, keep us limited, keep us one state forever. So I'm very happy how David addressed this Candace, religious, Catholic, Jewish husband. Craziness. I didn't know Candace. Supposed to remember. Yeah, I remember she was a left. She's supposed to support Obama 1 year. I don't remember what. Probably can't remember. She was a Democrat. But I didn't follow her those times. I didn't follow her. No, then she supported Trump. And second term Trump. And even when the Epstein files dropped, she said she didn't know for certain if Trump was in it. And I said, what? Like, what can go so? How that's even possible that you're gonna bring that point? Say, I'm not sure if Trump is in it. What? Trump and Epstein is his best of friends. Like, It would be crazy if Trump was not eating people. It's just ridiculous. And Tucker Carlson, same thing. It's not Trump, it's advisors and people from hey, ever support Trump. It just past crazy, yo. It's past crazy. You know somebody can really people from the first term, yo. On the first term, say, yo, what is this man even serious? So when I see him get elected, people, I know it was just comedy. You know? It was comedy. Straight comedy. And so said, so done. This whole Trump thing is comedic at this point. Comedic, people. Trump the dump, as I called him. Trump the dump. Yeah, that's my nickname for him, people. That's my nickname, yo. Cause he's definitely that. He's the dump. Trump the dump. And these so-called truthers supported him up to this year. Up to this year, them support Trump in the people. And all of a sudden now, what a new guy now? Tucker Carlson for president? Is that so? Okay. We'll see, we'll watch. Tucker Carlson for president, people. Are you voting? Vote, man. Tucker Carlson will do the right. He's gonna do it for the people. He's gonna work for the people. That's what I hear. That's what I keep on hearing. Obama is for the people. Trump is for the people. Hey, who's Tucker Carlson for the people? No. Better let Candace Owens. Let Candace run, people. Let Candace run. Yeah, Candace run. Yeah. Ridiculous. Crazy. Absolute madness.